Kakadosh Bokerosh Shavua Tov. We're just going to continue with the halachot of Sefirat Haomer, a very interesting halacha which is going to be brought down to do with Sefirat Haomer when you're going to count on Friday night. If we're going to be praying Plaga Mincha, Perga Mincha, what happens is that when you get home, many times you're going to be within the half an hour of Sefirat Haomer. The reason why is because usually there's a question, when you get home, are you allowed to make Kiddush and eat between half an hour before Kriyat Shema? However, Zman of Kriyat Shema is nightfall. So that's going to be around 35 minutes. Even if you're going to go more lenient, it's going to be 30 minutes right after the Shekiyah. The time of Sefirat Haomer is after the Shekiyah, immediately the Shekiyah. The reason why is because Maram brings down that you're allowed to count already during Ben Hashmashot. Ben Hashmashot is during the twilight, which is right after Shekiyah. So therefore, when you come and you tell me that you're not allowed to start Kiddush or eat before the Zman of the Sefirat Haomer, it's around 30 to 40 minutes before the time of Kriyat Shema. So now to do with Kriyat Shema, the Bet Yosef already speaks about it, because you're not supposed to have a real meal before the Zman of Kriyat Shema. Here, the Bet Yosef actually answers and he says, the fact that we prayed by Plaga Mincha and we said Kriyat Shema, and according to some opinions, we were Yitzei Chovah, even though we don't follow those opinions, but it's enough to do with the halacha of starting a meal. And therefore, on a regular Friday night, forget now Sefirat Haomer, regular Friday night, you go to, whether it's going to be a Plag Minyan or you're going to go to a Minyan, and then you get home, and it's still before the Zman of Kriyat Shema, you're allowed to start Kiddush and have a Seudah. Why? Because you already read the Kriyat Shema after the Plag Mincha. However, to do with Sefirat Haomer, what do? You didn't count the Sefirat Haomer at all, right? And it's at the end of the day, many times by the time you get home and you're going to start Kiddush, you're starting Kiddush within the half an hour of the Sefirat Haomer. So in order to get out of the problem, there's a few different ways of doing it. But one of the ways of doing it is that you do Kiddush and you do Amutzi, but you don't eat more than a kezait of bread. Meaning you only eat a kezait, and when it comes the time of the Sefirat Haomer, you count Sefirat Haomer, and then you could continue eating, and you could have the full kabetza and everything that you want of the bread. That's one way of doing it, because the isur of eating before Sefirat Haomer is only a kabetza of bread. If you're going to have less than a kabetza, it's not considered a real meal, and therefore there's no problem. That's one way of getting out of it. But the other ways of getting out of it is either going to be, if there's going to be more than one person eating with you, which is obligated in Sefirat Haomer. So for example, let's say you've got two men, right? Which means that somebody that's above bar mitzvah, that they're obligated in Sefirat Haomer because two people remind each other. Or you place your wife as shomer, and I would say or means it's better to add on instead of just or, it's better and, right? That you place your wife as shomer, that she's going to come and to remind you. You set yourself, whether it's going to be an alarm. Some people, they switch their watches. Some people, they come and they'll open up a book, a sefer, and they'll leave it beside them to remind them that they have to read, right, Sefirat Haomer, right? And in all these different ways, right, of doing it, basically what you're trying to do is that you're trying to remind yourself that you're obligated in the Sefirat Haomer. Once you do that, so then you would be able to continue with your meal regularly. But basically what you should do is try to do all of them, which means that you have a shomer. Shomer is basically placing somebody that's going to remind you of the Sefirat Haomer. If you're more than one person, the better, because that means you're going to remind each other of the Sefirat Haomer, right? And besides that, make a siman, something to remind yourself, whether it's going to be the watch, the sefer, a big piece of paper saying Sefirat Haomer, putting even the Sefirat Haomer chart right by the table. By doing these things, each one of these things is extra reminders to make sure that you don't have a problem. Then you would be able to start your Kiddush and your meal, even though again, you're starting within the half an hour that you have of the time of Sefirat Haomer.